Folks, before we begin, just a couple of things. As you know, we have as many windows open that are screened as we can for cross-ventilation, but guys especially, if the jackets or the sweaters or anything need to come off, because you're feeling a little warm or whatever, please feel free, to do that. I have, no issue with that. I already had to talk to Darcy and remind her to keep her jacket on, so we're going to make sure that we do that. And we are not Lunt late. We are actually going to be starting on time. Anyone who knows Brian, at least in the sphere like I do, know that there was always a 15-minute leeway. And there was a part of me that was thinking of starting at 3:45, but I said no. We're like, but 2 minutes is good. The grace and peace of God our Father, the unconditional love of Jesus, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. In this time of sorrow, the Lord is in our midst and comforts us with his word. Blessed are the sorrowful, for they shall be consoled. A reading from the book of John, chapter 14, verses 1 through 4. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and take you to myself, so that where I am, there you will be also. And you will know the way to the place where I am going. We come together from the diversity of our grieving to gather in the warmth of this community, giving stubborn witness to our belief that in times of sadness, there is room for laughter. And in times of darkness, there will always be light. We come together in faith and hope to find what meaning life holds for us, to soothe the wounds of daily life, and to grow together in wisdom and love. We live in between winter's cold and summer's heat, in between birth and death, in this perpetual time of in-between. It is a time for us to recognize what gives life meaning. It is a time to honor what we value. And in this time when we search for understanding and serenity in the face of loss, it is also a time to celebrate life. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Now, in 30 years of ministry, that was probably without a doubt the worst reading that I have ever heard in my entire life. So let's try that again. Good afternoon, friends.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. I am the Reverend Louis Schwebius. I am a hospice grief counselor and hospice chaplain. Some of you here may remember me as the officiant of Brian and Rose's wedding. I welcome you to this gathering of memory and celebration for my cousin-in-law and my friend, Brian James Lunt. Your presence here today pays tribute to a person who played an important part in each one of our lives, one who was dear to us. Your presence here shows your love and respect for the person he was, and the love and respect and support you are showing in various ways to the members of his family. This loving support is best expressed in these words, written by Howard Thurman. I share with you the agony of your grief. The anguish in your heart finds echo in my own. I know I cannot enter all you feel, nor bear with you the burden of your pain. I can but offer what my love does give, the strength of caring, the warmth of one who seeks to understand the silent, storm-swept barrenness of so great a loss. This I do in quiet ways, so that on your lonely path you may not walk alone. it is good that we have come together, because at this particular time, people need each other's empathy and compassion. People need each other's courage and wisdom. At such a time, the various faiths which sustain us separately come together in a harmony which acts across all creeds and assures us of the permanence and goodness of divine love and the permanence and goodness of human hope. All of us here today have been given the precious gift of life, a circle of days. Generation follows generation so that life endures circle, repeating circle. And death is at the end of all our days, closing the circle of each life. Now we all know this here. But here and here, death still brings to us a sense of deep loss. We rightfully mourn this loss and seek to understand it and accept it as we are able. So we meet here to give attention to and remember that spirit of life which was and is Brian James Lunt. Now, although this is the official opportunity we have to bring memories and emotions together as a community of family and friends, the reality is that this is just one part of a farewell that will continue in various ways for each of us throughout the weeks and months to come. But it is now that we gather to witness together in this very moment, in this precious moment. Now, although we gather to celebrate life, we also come together to mourn. For we are never, ever, ever, ever ready to see a loved one pass away, no matter how much preparation we think we may have given ourselves. And when someone as loved and as cherished as Brian passes away, he leaves a place in our minds and in our hearts that cannot be filled again in quite the same manner. For this is the ultimate meaning of love, that we cannot replace one another. As long as we risk involvement in the lives of others, building friendships or families, or even being touched by the lives of other people, we invite the certainty of loss. We invite the certainty of grief. Truly, living life to the fullest means that loss will come in time. Truly and deeply loving others to the fullest means that grief will come in time. All that we have would not be beautiful if we did not cherish it enough to feel it very deeply when it's lost. But the truth is that grief can be so very difficult to handle, because grief is not just one emotion, it's many. At various times we experience sadness, bewilderment, depression, anger, guilt. But we also experience love and joy and appreciation. And because of this, I believe that grief always needs to be shared. We must connect with people, talk through our experiences, talk through our pain and sorrow. Or as William Shakespeare has written, we must give sorrow words. But the truth is, we live in a death-denying, grief-avoiding society that wants every problem to have a clear solution and every experience of suffering to always have a clear balm. In all my years of hospice work, I find it one of life's great paradoxes that even though grief is perhaps one of the only human universal experiences that crosses all faiths, all ages, and all cultures, it is the one that we are often the least prepared for when it comes. So yes, we can't deny that death is separation, and it is sorrow-filled. But family and friends, I ask us today to let us not make death more than it is. Death is not a total eradication. For as long as memories endure, Brian's presence and influence will be deeply felt. Death is not an end to love, for humanity's need for love from each and every one of us is boundless. Death is not an end to joy and laughter, for nothing less would honor his sometimes juvenile sense of humor than to make our remaining lives humorless and colorless and plain. For the truth is, to grieve is to love, as deeply and as powerfully as we have ever known. To grieve together is to honor the strength and love of our human family. And it is the presence of love in our world which saves us from isolation and despair and renews our hearts and minds and souls over and over and over again. And grief is the bridge. It is the bridge back from the valley of the shadows. It is the bridge back from the irreplaceable love that is lost. It is the bridge to the future and the irreplaceable love that still lies before us and sustains us. Yes, it will forever change us, but that is what love and grief do. The purpose of life, my friends, is not to avoid grief and death. The purpose of life is to live it in such a way that our lives will prove worth dying for by the love we leave behind. By the love we leave behind. And in that spirit, we must take the time today to affirm our Brian. Not your Brian, not my Brian, our Brian. The Brian who has touched this gathering in so many ways, filling our lives with memory and meaning and love. So we meet here today in the presence of death to pay homage to that spirit of life which radiated in Brian's heart and soul. So today and in the days to come, and you all started this downstairs already, let there be talk. Let there be stories. Let there be memories. Let there be word pictures of Brian, which will then kindle other stories, other memories, other pictures in our minds and hearts, and in the minds and hearts of others. This too is a part of mourning. This too is a part of remembering. This too is the work of love. And we who gather here today come in love's name to express a calm and abiding trust in love's immortality and in love's consecrating power. We are gathered here today in a sacred circle of humanity, in a sacred circle with the hand of the Creator that blesses each and every one of us. And it is in this gathering of concern and memory and blessing and compassion and hope where grace and healing can be found. I'm going to invite several formal speakers up, one at a time to the pulpit to share their reflections, and I want to begin with Brian's brother Rick. Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let's remember, it's a celebration, like the morning of life that happens because we're celebrating. As we said, I'm Rick Lunt. I haven't met all of you, Brian's brother. We live our lives often remembering the last moments, the last delight, the last event. So let's remember together. I want you to remember Brian was more than one person. Brian was Gumby. We have Ranking Brian.
How about water ski Brian? Mellow Brian? And of course, we've got boating Brian. And there's family Brian. Nobody can forget Car Brian. And how about Photo Brian? Now we've got Dirt Bike Brian. We have Coaching Brian. Sailing Brian? Husband Brian. Skiing Brian. Friend Brian. And Happy Brian. This is Brian on his bucket list for Chris Hart. Aren't we lucky? We all got to be touched by Brian. For me, the 60 years I got to spend with Brian was a gift. I got touched by all of them. I got them all. So I leave you with this thought. Relish the moments you had with Brian. They are precious. No, they were grand. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Brian's son, Austin.
We'll start it off by saying how my dad always did. He would always say, "Hi, I'm Brian Lunt." So, hi, I'm Austin. So for my reading today, I'm going to ask a series of whys. And when I say why with my hands up, I would like all of us to answer because he's Brian Lunt. Okay, so I'm going to say something like crazy, like, why is he going biking at 5 in the morning every single day and sleeping at 8 o'clock at night? Why?
Because he's Brian Lunt.
Brian Lunt, what do you say about the most interesting man in the world in under 10 minutes? Brian has many names. Brian, Bride, Bride Man, Bride Guy, B. Lunt, Lunt, Coach Lunt, most importantly, be late. As many of you know, Brian was late to 90% of the functions that he was attending. Why?
Because he's Brian Lunt.
It was most likely due to the fact that the man did almost every activity that this plan had to offer. Brian enjoyed mountain biking, skiing, dirt biking, car racing, sailing, boating, water skiing, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, coaching, picture taking, and being a handyman when needed. Throughout the year, he always had a hobby to hang his hat on. And always had projects that needed to be done and never liked to rest. Why? Brian was honestly the most interesting man in this world, and this is what I've learned from the most important person in my life. My father has given my brother and I the special gift of sharing in all of his crazy hobbies. Because of this, he has given me the ability to feel comfortable no matter where I am, no matter what I am doing. Brian managed to teach all his hobbies to us while also introducing us to others. He would always say, if you're going to do it right. And when I wanted to play lacrosse, Dad instantly started to Google the rules and gameplay in order to capture the best pictures of me. When Spencer decided he wanted to play soccer again, well, Coach Lunt came out of retirement to coach one of his sons one last time. When Spencer had a small project of building a colonial pillory for school, Dad instantly started to make blueprints for a full life-size pillory that sat in our backyard for about 10 years with his wood tools. Now why?
Because he's Brian Lunt.
Because he's Brian Lunt. He always found a way to support us no matter what we were doing. With that said, my father also taught me how to drive a stick. He had few life rules, but one of them was never teach your significant other how to drive standard, and never play partners tennis with them either. Now, if you know Brian, this was not one of his most graceful moments. I felt like the significant other. There were a lot of F words thrown around. Are you kidding me, Austins? And it's the one on the right! But nonetheless, I stuck with it until I felt comfortable enough to drive without him. He even enrolled me in a racing school in Arkansas for all of us to drive to and attend, which was approximately 18 hours away. Now why?
Because he's Brian Lunt.
Because he's Brian Lunt. My father taught me so many amazing skills and hobbies that I would not be myself today without all of them. He truly did show me the world and what it had to offer. We are here to talk about Brian Lunt, father, husband, and best friend. I say best friend because if you somehow do not know Brian Lunt, give him about 5 minutes of your time, and we will know some of the most important things going on in your life, and then he will ask you about them every time he sees you. You would be anybody's best friend, and why? When Brian coached our soccer teams, every season he had one famous saying: we win and lose like gentlemen. He wanted us to win, but he wanted to teach us how to be good men first. He was always coaching people to be their best version of themselves. He truly saw the world and people differently. Brian made everyone around him feel welcome and loved. Just like the boys or his brothers, he treated my friends like his own children and gave them his home as if it were theirs too. There's an old story of Grandpa John stopping Brian and the boys from sailing so they could so willingly paint the house. Well, like father, like son, one morning Dad comes out to my friends and I deciding what we were going to do on the deck. He said one of his famous sayings, like, "You guys went for the championship last night." And we replied, "Yeah, we had fun behind the things." He said, "Great, what are you guys doing?" I said, "I think we're going to go hiking." He said, "Great, great. We're going to put up the awning today, actually." The funny thing is, Brian wasn't quite sure how to get the awning up. But he had duct tape, zip ties, and string. So the awning got up. Brian Lunt thought he could do anything, and for the most part he could. Why?
Because he's Brian Lunt.
Right. Now that's how Dad was. As soon as he woke up at 5 in the morning, the man never stopped. He made the most out of every single day, but could be found passed out on the couch as soon as the clock struck 8. Put his family and friends first, and himself last. I believe we all can learn from Brian Lunt. The way he cared for strangers, the way he cared for his friends, the way he cared for his family. He was so selfless and would do anything for anyone in this room. He had one of the biggest hearts that I've ever seen. He made sure to show everyone what it meant to be Brian, Bri man, Bri guy, be Lunt, be late, and why?
Because he's Brian Lunt.
Because he's Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Barry Johnson.
Thank you, Reverend Lewis. Austin. I wrote the same thing. I want to cut this down a little bit. Rick, same to you. If anybody knows Brian, which you all do, he made a major impact in our life. So it goes like this. I met Brian in the fall of 1979 at the University of New Hampshire, almost 43 years ago. Since our first introduction, we knew we'd be friends for life, simply because we shared many of the same interests in life. And it goes like this. I said, hey Bear, what do you like to do? I like to ski in the winter, I like to water ski in the summer. Obviously I love to play soccer because that's what I did in college for 2 years and in high school, as he did. Probably when I think he started crawling, Rick. He says, I obviously love bicycling, biking, anything that has wheels on it, whether it's a mountain bike, a fat tire bike, or anything that goes along with a bicycle. Hiking, tennis, he's a good tennis player actually. Basketball, excellent basketball player, even in a wheelchair. Squash, does anybody know what squash is? We played squash at UNH. It's a really fast game, and if you get hit by a squash ball, it really hurts. And he hit me a lot. He wasn't that good at it. Austin, Spencer, how can you not forget motorcycles? And by the way, when I first met your dad, we had the really fast motorcycles. And God was on our side because he went down once, I went down once, Mr. Pepin went down once. The old saying is, those who have and those who will. That's when Brian and I, we broke bread and we said, let's get rid of the motorcycles. Going over 80 miles an hour is not good. But we always wore helmets in weather, so that helped us out. And the dirt bikes that I enjoyed with you, Austin and Spencer, and the entire dirt bike and camping circle will always be in my heart. The list goes on and on. But later on in life, in his adult life, as you mentioned, Austin, his biggest love was giving back and being a coach. I won't mention whether we win or lose like gentlemen, because I did have that down there. That's something that sticks with me as well. And teaching blind skiers how to ski. I mean, Rose, like he had time? But he made time. I mean, to go to Seven Springs, it's like, yeah, Sunday afternoon, I am going to go teach a blind skier how to ski. Incredible. But one thing that he enjoyed the most was being out on the water. There are no roads, no barriers, no guidelines, other than the local Marine Patrol that would occasionally pull him over. And somehow he got out of it. He enjoyed the openness of the water and the life lesson his dad, John Frederick Lunt, taught him. And your dad, John, was the real deal, along with your mom, Marilyn. John, as we all know, most of you have heard stories, John and Marilyn were boating enthusiasts, and wherever they lived, they always lived near water, and they either had a sailboat or a motorboat. And John welcomed me, welcomed Brian's friends from UNH into his family. We felt that we were part of your family. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. We were first introduced to the sailboat Cinnamon after the beautiful golden retriever. And then followed by Cinnamon was a powerboat called Business. Whenever I called Brian's dad and said, Mr. Lunt, we called him Mr. L, out of respect. I said, where are you, Mr. L? He goes, I'm out on business. Oh, I'm sorry to bother you. He goes, that's all right, I'll call you back. And that's the truth. John, your dad, called it contained family fun. I said, John, what do you mean by that? He said, you see, Barry, when I get the family and extended friends out on the boat, I take them out all day, buy some sandwiches, buy some beverages. They can't run away. It's contained family fun. And I got it. Moving forward in time to sailing on Lake Arthur with his sailboat that he picked out with you, Rose. We all know the story. Reverend Lewis, I could be here for, he coached me through this whole speech. He said, we got to cut it down from 2 hours to about 12 minutes. Again, Brian just pulling off the incredible, driving to Ohio for a sailboat to give to Rose for a gift. Sitting in a parking lot of a, was Sheetz, was it, or? Sheetz gas station, and Rose is like, is this a deal or something? What's going on? And he said, no, hon, that sailboat over there is yours. We're going to go sailing on it on Lake Arthur. That's how he was. Always giving. Call it the Roger Dodger. Phil, after Roger Nengus, because he had a special feeling for sailing from your dad. During the years at UNH, we bonded and bonded like no other friends could. And it's just because we really had the same interests. We took care of each other. We loved our families. We loved everything that we did together. And we knew that we were going to be together for a long, long time. Jamie Lozer, who's here, is going to be speaking a little bit later. He had an uncle, Stan, that had a 52-foot Hinckley sailing boat. Brian called me and he said, Bear, you got to come over and check out this boat. He goes, it's a ship. And we're going to go sailing on it. We're going to sail it from, was it just south of Bangor, Maine, down to Newport, Rhode Island. And I said, do you know how to sail? Bri said, yeah, I know how to sail. I've been sailing before. I know how to do this. So we got on the boat. It was fully outfitted with beverages and food and everything else to keep us alive for probably 2 or 3 days. And Brian got on the boat and he said, I'm the captain of this ship. And I said, Jamie, does he know how to sail? He goes, just go with it, Bear. He says he'll be out in a matter of an hour. And in an hour, he was sick as a dog, and we go into the Lunt movie. And your dad would be there, and he was, 12 hours at the earliest, maybe up to 24, but once he came out of the galley, he was ready to go. And he did. And he sailed to Bermuda with Mr. Pepin and Jamie Lozer and Rob Moore and a number of other friends. I missed the Bermuda trip, but many, many stories will come out later this afternoon about the Bermuda trip. But your dad always went for it, whether it was going to Bermuda, British Virgin Islands, BVI, crazy. And he survived, and he did it, and he took care of everybody. Back on land, of course, he enjoyed, as you mentioned, Austin. Fast motorcycles, fast dirt bikes. He kept getting a faster and faster dirt bike. And Austin and Spencer and I were saying, do you really need a faster dirt bike, Brian? We're getting older. He got a faster dirt bike. The camping with the dirt bikes, fast snowmobiles. Slowed down once in a while with you, Rose, with the snowshoeing. He bought snowshoes just because this is boring. Who can not forget about the exotic cars that Rick pointed out? Ferrari was his favorite. That was his second bucket list item. Beyond the Chris Craft, by the way, a little hint there, Rick. We're trying to figure out how we can buy it together. Formula One car racing, I had the pleasure to go to 3 Formula One car racing events with him. Anything that had wheels went very fast. Let's not forget high-end stereo equipment, surround sound for all of those you don't know, but surround sound when it came out back in the 80s, your dad sold high-end stereo equipment. And he hooked us all up with the ultimate. And it would just show up at a doorstep and would say, Brian, how much do I owe you? He said, we'll work it out later. That's how he was. MTV, music television, it's still out there. It came out on August 1st, 1981. They just celebrated 40 years last year. He was addicted to MTV. As you know, addicted to movies that involve speed and suspense. He was the guy that had MTV in his room, the first one on the University of New Hampshire campus. How much does this cost? I don't know, whatever it takes. His favorite spots were Canoma Point. Obviously, we spent a lot of time there. Hampton Beach, Yarmouth, Maine, anywhere in Vermont, Maine, or New Hampshire. Somerset, PA, which we spent so many great camping trips together. The Outer Banks of North Carolina at Dunnacott Point, not forget that. Franklin Park, North Park, everywhere that you two went, Rose, favorite spot. And he'd tell that to me. Very fond appreciation when we'd be laying down on the grass, awake. We talked about the moon, the stars, the sun, the beach, the mountains, the oceans, the lakes, the rivers. His church at Old Orchard, his faith really came into play. It was always there from day one, but it really came into play later in life. And then his devotion to you, Rose, Austin, Spencer, Nicholas, Sophia, the extended family, Swenson family, and all the many circles of friends. He was a master at balancing many circles. That's really difficult to do. As we all know, we're very, very busy people. We have our own little circle of friends. One circle's enough. Not for Mr. Lunt. I said, Brian, how many circles do you have? I don't know, it doesn't matter. And that's what he said to me. And he shared the same specific interests in each one of those circles with those friendships that he had. He kept the circles of life in perpetual motion, and he was always building, and he was always giving. He had a gift that you cannot teach, you cannot learn it, you cannot study it in school. You cannot mimic it because it comes from your heart and within your soul. Austin Rick, you said this, as you would come into a room or a camping or an area or on a boat, he always made you feel very special in many ways. And he'd wait on you hand and foot to make sure that you were comfortable and happy. He was a man on the move, and boy, I was tired of him moving. I wrote it down on a piece of paper. This was probably the fourth meeting I had with Reverend Lewis. And I said, I counted 12 times, but I think it was 15. You know, being born in Hartford, Connecticut, his parents moved to North Conway, then they moved over to Maine. That's when I met John, Marion, and Marilyn, and they welcomed me into their home. And from Freiburg Academy to UNH to Durham, holding various jobs in New Hampshire, Massachusetts. There was one stint, by the way, that I mentioned to you just last week, Illinois. He was in Chicago, because I did visit him, so I know he was there. And we had a great time. He welcomed me, and we went out and had a great dinner. Texas, and then this final resting place in Pittsburgh, PA, where he had formed many, many circles of friends. Brian and I shared a common bond that was easy to manage. We never lost sight on the important things in life, and we always would try to truly outbake each other. And that's one thing that I think Rick's heard the stories, Rose has heard the stories. And one fun thing when you had a friend is that you were always trying to outdo each other. Well, just one special story that I wanted to share with everyone. When we're at UNH, it was in the fall of 1981. And as I mentioned before, MTV just came out in August of 1981. So Brian had the best Sony TV in his Crescent apartment, the best surround sound stereo system because he could get it because he was, he had connections where you could buy it. And we worked for the University of New Hampshire crowd control, believe it or not. We thought we were bouncers, but we really weren't. And the Pretenders came into town in October. Brass in Pocket. Do you remember that when it all came out? Brass in Pocket. Well, Brian came down with the flu and he was devastated. So he said, I can't go. I'm sick. I'm going to stay here in my apartment. You guys go. I'll catch up with you tomorrow. Well, we went to the show. We came back, and as we were walking back, we went through the alumni building where they have an apartment and housing in a beautiful hotel. And who do we run into but Martin Chambers, the drummer of the Pretenders. Chrissy Hines just left, the lead singer. We said, oh, how do we get Chrissy Hines? We immediately thought, how do we get back to Brian? Chrissy didn't show up. She went to her room. It was about 11:30. So we went over. We had the courage. Rob Moore and I went over and we asked Martin Chambers, we go, hey, we have our best friend who's about 80 yards that way in a room. He's not feeling well. He was supposed to be at the show. He couldn't make it. How'd you like to come over and have a beer with us? He goes, sure, mate. No problem. True story. We go over to Crescent House. There's Brian still up. I got to get a little animated here. Covered in his quilt and a pull-out couch, because he wasn't sleeping in his room because he didn't have a television in his room, it was all in the living room. And we walk in with Martin Chambers in blondish hair, English chap, and we come in and there is the Pretenders' Brass in Pocket at the very front of it's an album, it's a plastic record. And he had his turntable set up, and we're watching MTV, and we go, Brian, we want to introduce you to Martin Chambers, the drummer of the Pretenders. And his eyes lit up, and he couldn't believe it. We go, it's Martin. And we obviously served Martin a beer, and we gave him, he loved American Levi dungarees. So we went on, we go, what's your size? We were scattered everywhere. We found his size, he grabbed those, and this is a true story, I'm not making this up. While we're watching MTV, The Pretenders comes on, Brass in Pocket. And you've got the album there, you've got Brian, your dad there, just happy, grinning ear to ear. And this is the first time Martin Chambers in America had seen the video. And he's watching it intensely, and he said, Chrissy looks really good right there. Brian Mann says, hey Martin, you look really good right there too. Now he's got the flu, he's sick. Again, just never giving up, completely witty. I mean, how do you beat that? That was the best story ever. I'll take that forever. Throughout the years, he developed strong relationships with God, his faith, his family, his friends. Truly understood that every day was a special day and a gift from above. He loved all of you. Dad, John, Marilyn, Rick, Darcy, Julie, Shane, Martha, Dan, and the extended family. He embraced everybody. Rose, Nicholas, Sophia. As you know, Rose, when he came into your life, he just pulled everybody into his circle and made more circles. Nobody can forget about all of his pets. I won't name them all because it's too long to name. But he said pets keep you grounded. From Sebastian, his dog, and that was in Massachusetts that I met, that Sebastian would eat raccoons, he was scary. To Felix the cat that is still here with us. He embraced all the pets throughout his life, and you can always, I always would say, you can judge a person's character by the way they treat their pets. Enough said. Rose came into his life in August of 2014 through family sports, where Brian coached youth soccer for the junior league in Pennsylvania. As time evolved, the connection with Rose was realized and was truly unconditional and spiritual. True partners from the very beginning. He embraced his family. He welcomed Nicholas and Sophia and the extended Swinson family into his heart. Truly unconditional. As we all know, Brian suffered this terrible stroke. In September 2018, we're devastated. We fought through that together. Rick, Martha, Julie, Austin, Spencer, Rose, and everyone here. But there was one pillar, one rock that stood beside him. True to your words, Rose. You fought for Brian's best interests. You were God's strength, all in one package. A wife, a mother, devoted caregiver, a great friend, a dedicated provider to ensure stability and balance within the family. Your love for Brian was endless, it was tireless, it was forever faithful. You rose, you never gave up. Brian rubbed off on you, and you rubbed off on Brian, and you had that special connection. You supported his wishes to the last few moments on this beautiful earth, and you comforted him in his own home, shared by his family, and surrounded with love. In summary, I'll always remember Brian by a poster that was on Jamie Lowe's door at UNH. It was this man jumping off a cliff, very dangerous cliff, very high. And you could tell that he had to at least get out at least 50 to 80 feet, otherwise he would hit the rocks below. And the poster said, "You only live life once, but if you live it right, once is enough." That was pride. God took him too soon, but I'll say 5 lives, maybe 8. He lived a lot, like you said, Austin. Why are you getting up at 5 a.m. every morning? Because he's Brian Lunt. Some people say he who passes with the most toys wins. Based on all the toys that Brian James Lunt had in his oversized storage garage north of Pittsburgh, 20 miles north of here, he won. Rick, the phone conversations that you and I had, I'll cherish forever, because Rick called me and he said, "Have you been there yet, Bear?" I go, "No." He goes, "Well, let me tell you something. Be prepared when you go, because when you open up the double garage door, you can't take 1 foot into the garage, and if you hold your hand out with a piece of chewing gum and drop it, it won't hit the cement floor." And he was right. However, that wasn't Brian's measuring stick. Brian's measuring stick was, he who passes with the most love of family, friends, and life wins. Well, Brian, you won. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 14, says this: "You are the light of the world. A city built upon a hill cannot be hidden. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under a bushel basket, but instead raises it on the lampstand, where it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." The words and testimony that we have heard shows how much Brian's light has shown the way for others. And in that spirit, I'm going to ask us to bear witness to this little table of candles here before us in the front. And a word about that. A candle has its allotted span to burn, as a human life has its allotted span of years to live. Yet while it burns, either for a short or long span of time, it radiates light, it radiates heat. It kindles other flames as life kindles more life. That glow and that heat, that passion of life, is passed on, so that the fire of love and life still burns, even after the first candle is extinguished or consumed. I light this first candle in memory of Brian's life. Though the flame of his life has been extinguished, the memory's eye, the heart spirit still sees him, and the mind still remembers his down-to-earth kindness and how his life shaped the lives of others. The second candle is lit to acknowledge all of those who Brian loved so strongly and feel his death most grievously. Let all in this community take the time in future days to walk quietly beside these people closest to Brian, hearing their words, seeking to understand the depth of their loss, the pain of their grief, and always, always remembering to give them encouragement and support. third candle is lit in the spirit of thanksgiving. For each and every one of us here are truly thankful for Brian's life. We are also thankful for the gift of all life, which passes from generation to generation. The fourth and final candle is lit for the spirit of love which never dies. We are glad to have been known and loved by Brian, and to have known and loved him in return. And with that last candle, we also acknowledge the eternal, enduring love which has brought all of us here together. That love which endures all things, that love which heals all wounds. Two members of Brian's extended family, Rose's children, Nick Swenson and Sophia Swenson, couldn't be physically with us today, but they have each taped some brief greetings for us, so we're going to take time to see that before we move on. Josh?
Hi, I'm Nick Swenson, Brian's stepson. Since I can't physically be at Brian's celebration of life, I thought I'd record a few words about what Brian meant to me. I can't express much that Brian did not abundantly express himself, that being his love and compassion for others, and his endless quest to teach one more person one new thing, whether that be skiing, soccer, or specifically for me, sailing. He did teach me soccer too. Brian got a sailboat for us, but probably mostly for Mom, and took me out on Lake Arthur over the course of a summer. And in my mind shows just who Brian was, a loving teacher in his element among the tumultuous winds and waves battering our little boat. So I thought I'd share a reading that reminded me just of that. It's called The Ship. I am standing upon the seashore. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the morning breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of strength and beauty, and I stand and watch her until she is only a ribbon of white cloud where the sea and the sky seem to mingle with each other. Then someone at my side says, "There, she's gone." Gone? Gone where? Gone from my sight, that's all. She is just as complete in mast and hull and spar as she was when she left my side, and just as able to bear her precious freight to the place of destination. Her diminished appearance is in me, not in her. And at the very moment when someone at my side says, "There, she's gone," other voices shout with gladness, "Here she comes." And that is death. Death is only a horizon, and a horizon is a limit of our sight. Love you, Brian. Godspeed. Thank you.
Hello, friends and family. I hope you are all doing well. I know I am. I am here in Syracuse, celebrating just as much as you are, even though we are 350 miles apart. We are still connected through our love and our appreciation of the wonderful man that Brian was and still is. Brian was my stepfather and still is my stepfather. I still see him very much as part of my life and part of my family. And he came into my life a little bit before my 10th grade year in high school, and he has been nothing but a light in my life, an incredibly beautiful human being, and I am infinitely blessed to be his daughter. And I always looked up to him as a father and as a parent We had wonderful conversations early in the mornings with our cups of coffee, and parasailing together, and Brian was always the person who never said no. He was the person who said, okay, let's see how we can make this work. So innovative, so smart, so beautiful, such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human. And someone with no ego, which you don't find very much, very often, especially now. I don't really know what to say except that I am very sad, as we all are. Obviously in a grieving process, as we all are. But I think the thing that will keep us together and the thing that will help us through this moment is Brian's love for life. And I think we would be doing Brian a disservice if we did not celebrate life as much as he did. And on that note, I am going to do what Brian always loved, which is sing. So I sang at his wedding, and I sang for him all the time, and he always loved when I sang. So this is for you, Brian. I'm going to sing one of his favorite songs, and it was one of the songs I sang right before he passed away, and it helped him to be at ease, rest, be at peace, and I hope it brings you all as much peace as it did Brian. This is How Can I Keep From Singing. My life goes on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off moon, that hails a new creation. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love is Lord of heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? I love you all.
The philosopher Seneca writes these words: in the presence of death, we must continue to sing the song of life. We must be able to accept death and go from its presence, better able to bear our burdens and to lighten the load of others. Out of our sorrows should come understanding. Through our sorrows we join with all of those before us who have had to suffer, and all of those who will have yet to do so. Let us not be gripped by the fear of death. If another day be added to our lives, let us joyfully receive it. But let us not anxiously depend on our tomorrows. Though we grieve the deaths of loved ones, we accept them and hold on to our memories as precious gifts. Let us make the best of our loved ones while they are with us. and let us not bury our love with death. We now enter into a time where this community can reflect on Brian's life and remember him as he lived. How his life touched your lives and filled your common world. Now the thoughts expressed today will be far from complete, for Brian's life must remain as it is remembered by all of those who loved and watched and shared. For such memories are alive and unbound by the events of birth and death. Every single one of us here today is a living memory of others who have gone before us. Hear that again. Every single one of us here today is a living memory of others who have gone before us. And as living memories, each and every one of us possess the greatest gift that one person can give to another, for it is to each and every one of us that the living memories of Brian's life are committed. Into our hearts and minds go the enduring memories of his spirit, and we move closer to healing and renewal whenever we remember and share the stories. We who live have a responsibility to remember, to listen to the rustle in the trees and wonder, to sense a glow inside and recognize our ancestors, to speak the names, to tell the stories. And in these ways, we will heal and live more fully. We will heal and become more fully human. And as we remember and heal, we will connect with that renewal of the Spirit, which undergirds all of the joys and sorrows of life. So as we take these next moments to remember Brian, I invite you all to search your thoughts, be in touch with your feelings, think about the person he was, how he touched your life, how your life touched his. And then after a few moments of silence, I'm going to invite anyone who is so moved to just rise from their seat, take off your mask, share a brief tribute, a word, a thought, a memory about Brian. Now, we in this community know and respect that many of you may not be able to or may not wish to say anything at this time. And if you would rather simply remain in your own individual silence and offer a more personal prayer, this too is most appropriate and most welcome. And there also will be a time at the reception following this service where some or all of you will be able to give further voice to even more memories and to even more stories. But for now, let us enter into the silence, and then for a brief time, let's go where the Spirit may move us. A few moments of silence. And if anyone is so moved, just sort of give me a signal so in case there's more than one of you, I can sort of give you all a chance to speak. So if anyone is moved to say something about our Brian, this is the time.
Brian, you're here with us. I love you. And I'll share more later. Laughter and humor. So I got kicked in the back and told I had to say something to the riders and crew. Like it shared on a bike ride. water bottles, spiked hot chocolate, occasional drop of sweat, and a lot of personal stories, a lot of problems, and a lot of discussion. Crashing. Occasionally our wives or significant others find out about some of that. Occasionally we walk in limping and they say, "What happened?" I bumped myself in the car leaving the bike. But whenever we get together and ride, some of that would happen in the parking lot before we went, some of it in the early part of the ride. At some point, Brian would say, "Let's just ride. We'll make it better." And it does. Sharing time with friends, sharing something to do with friends. So, do you be late? See you in 15 minutes.
Hi, I'm Tim Hatfield. I'd like to share a little short story with you about Brian. I met Brian later in life than most of you, but it was hard to miss his extraordinary sense of humor and friendliness and the great relationship he had, of course, with Rose, whose children I already knew. And then I was fortunate to meet Austin and Spencer at their wedding, and many of you remember that wonderful occasion. And the sunset, do you remember the sunset afterwards? It looked like it was divinely placed for the photographs. So I visited Brian many times after his stroke in the hospital and followed him from one place to another and tried to see him. And although he wasn't always the Brian that we knew, he was still a real character, and I still thoroughly enjoyed the few words I always had with him. So I was unfortunately not able to be there when Brian passed, but I was there just a short time before, and Austin and I shared some words with him. And that was very comforting for me, and Austin and I enjoyed, if that's the right word, being there with you. I had to go back to England when I knew that we didn't have much longer to see my mother, who'd been ill. And it was unfortunate that I was on the journey to the airport. I decided instead of flying out of Pittsburgh, which was too expensive, and I could see my son who lives in DC, I flew out of DC. So as usual, just like Brian, I'm late with everything. I was late today, but you could like that in my case. So I set off, and of course it's a 5-hour journey, and being late, I was going very fast. And then I heard from a text from Rose that they had taken the oxygen off Brian, so I knew it wasn't going to be long. That was tough. And I put the radio on, and I got the Beatles channel, Sirius Radio, and of course, Rose is a huge Beatles fan, and Brian, I think through her, if he wasn't already a Beatles fan, became one very quickly. And so I started thinking, well, which song would be appropriate? You know, Brian's going to pass. Could it be soon? And there were so many great Beatles songs. But then on came Here Comes the Sun. And it just seemed perfect in the association with light. And I thought, I made a note of the time. And I thought, could this be a song that goes out to? It would be very good. And it has the lyric in it. It's all right. It's all right, as you may know. And at this point, I'd been taken off by Google with the back road to the airport. And I was in this very strange landscape that was neither agricultural nor livestock, no buildings, and it was taking me on this very strange route. So then I heard that he had passed, and I thought, well, where am I in this strange landscape? Of course, tears rolling down my cheeks. And the first sign I came to said, well, first sign for the place where I was said, hallowed ground. And I thought, Brian, you up there playing some tricks with me on a little astral plane. So I went a bit further and I turned the radio on again, the Beatles channel. And this could only be Brian because it was, what was it? I had to write the title down today because I checked it in. Come On Christmas. I thought, okay, Brian, that's got to be you and your sense of humor. And the weird thing was, and Ringo Starr, totally unknown. I checked today. Here Comes the Sun has like 88 million views, but the Ringo Starr one has 8,000. It's not a great song. It was so perfect for Brian's sense of humor at that point in time. And then I listened to the lyrics. And the lyrics again said, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right, repeatedly. And for me, this was Brian, you know, it's either just coincidence or it was Brian saying it was the time to go into life. I drove on a bit further and trying to pull myself together, you know, drive safely, still a bit of nowhere, and was coming out of it, I wanted to go to the airport. And there was another road sign came up and it said, "You have been driving through hallowed ground." And I will leave you to think about where I was, because I can think of what it was and why those signs said that. Timing for Brian, the beauty of that passing, I discovered later, when Rose told me when Brian passed, that song was probably only 4 or 5 minutes away from when he passed. That Here Comes the Sun. So, and then there's a little sense of humor at the end as well. I just thought you might like to hear that story.
But I remember every couple of years he would always text my mom asking me to coach soccer games for me. I didn't play soccer. Or he'd ask, "Oh, can I teach her to ski?" I didn't ski. But even when he was on the bed during his last few months, he was like, "I want to teach her something." And he was always willing to be there to give. And he's touched every single one of us in this room. He's touched his sons, and through them, they've touched me, especially in that I feel like he's passed on his generous, his way of giving back, especially to Austin and Spencer. And I see it through Nick, especially in the Air Force. And I just think that wherever Uncle Bry is right now, he's looking down on us, and he can see that we are all here and we're going to be here for each other, especially in what's going to come next. And I think that's the love that Uncle Brian has want us to keep coming.
So, I think I know most of you, but a few I don't. I'm Brian's younger sister, Julie. And the thing I want to say is that it pleases me so much to see very close friends here that were kind of part of a family. As everybody talked about, the Mr. Lunt and the Brian. And I know that he always brought us as brothers and sisters closer together as a family. So I just want to say thank you. It really means a lot to see some really old family friends that are like brothers and sisters to me here today to celebrate his life. Thank you.
I know most of you, but for those who don't know, I am Brian's other sister, Brenda. He would have saved me, you guys. I might ramble a little bit, but just some of the things. Brian took a couple of mysteries, and I'm sure if you delve into your thoughts of Brian with him, but one I asked my brother and sister the other day, was growing up, was we came home one day, and we had been out, but Brian had been home. And I'm not sure who else was home, but we walked into the house, and the entire back sliding glass door was in about 2.5 million pieces, shattered. And around my house for the next 2 days was, what happened? And Brian had been home. And to this day, I don't know what happened. He said it was a bird. It's one of the memories I have of him growing up thinking, a bird, to this day, I don't believe it will be a mystery to me. But I'm sure there's a mystery that Brian did something or was in your life that you'll often wonder, I always thought Brian had like 9 lives, like a cat. Somebody else mentioned ×3. Because I always felt whatever he did always kind of turned to gold. If there was a pile of shit. So he's like gold. He just had that magical touch to him. He could take something that, we might all say, no, and he'd be like, and make it just wonderful for us, and a wonderful experience. If something was going on, he could turn it around. And that was him. And I remember being in the car with him one day and thinking, the cops pulled us over. And I think there's somebody else, a couple of you guys that were in the car with me that day. And I'm thinking, this isn't going to be good. The 9 lives were there, you guys, absolutely. I figured we were in the state penitentiary by this time, but we didn't. He just had that magic, and that's what a lot he meant to me. Later in life, he brought this wonderful woman into my life, and I can remember sitting, going into her house, not knowing her, but just sitting on her kitchen floor, drinking wine, and he welcomed my daughter. She went off to college here nearby. And we'll never forget the story of the car and fixing the car. And, it was just his way of giving back. He always, was excited that you were coming into town, and he wanted to just like, and it didn't matter what it was. It was like, oh, my kid's got a soccer game. Come on, we can all go. Inviting you and wanting you to be there. He would just do anything for you, the job that I had, or just invite you to do whatever he was doing that day, because that's who Brian was. So I just wanted to share that with you, what he meant to me and my family. And and I will always remember, because the last month, Rick calls me Marty. Brian always said, hey, Marty. And I think I've walked around for the last month, a door outside, and it's, hey, Marty. And I can just, that's what I would always listen and hear from him.
Oh, yes, back there and then front. My name is Julie. I live in the neighborhood across from Brian and Rose. And I met Rose and her family when they first moved in. And shortly thereafter, we met Brian. And as soon as Brian came, the energy changed in the neighborhood. There are a lot of toys in the driveway. But he had a presence. And prior to falling ill, Brian was always out in the yard and could never pass the house without Brian saying, hey, Julie, hey, Stu. And it wasn't, we wanted to be, he drew us to him. We wanted to be with him. And as he was struggling with his health, we would be walking our dog, and neighbors would be walking the dogs, and you never saw anyone not stop. Everyone stopped, and not because they had to, because they wanted to. He drew everybody close. They could feel that energy, that positivity, that love. And we only knew him a very short time, but we experienced a lot of the things that you've been sharing today. And we want to thank all of you, and Brian and his family, and Rose, and her family too. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessie. I'm the one who went to college nearby and was very graciously welcomed into Rose and Brian's home. I went to school to be a nurse. That was an interesting thing. Graduated in 2019, and so got all the fun of being a nurse during the pandemic. So I experienced a lot of death. Death is something that's been very familiar to me ever since first I heard of John. That was the first time I ever experienced, and many more after that. And it's something that I think a lot of us get stuck with, in the sense that, how do you make sense of it? How do you make sense of an accident, a stroke, sudden death, or a death that's been expected? How do you move on with your life? Because you can't just move on. And I'm still figuring it out, but one of the things that's been helpful to me anyway, and I think belongs in this space too, is that Brian's Brian's body is at peace, and it didn't have peace for a really long time. But with that peace, we get to also hold his joy. I see a lot in Austin and Spencer. Kind of body is finally at peace, but you get to carry his joy in the way that he lives his life. And you already do it really well. He's really proud of the man that you are and will become. And I just think it's really, really special that you get to kind of keep him alive in the way that you live. And similarly, we kind of all get to do that, right? You know, we all get to have a welcoming home and a welcoming heart. We get to remember him. I know how to fix my car door now. That was wrong. But we get to cherish little things like, hey, Mark, and having a sister, and cousin, and a family. Because the world doesn't make sense most of the time, but finding meaning and just being able to carry the joy that someone has given us or shown to us is how you get through these things. I've seen it too many times, but it takes a while, and it's important to celebrate his life in the way that we live. So, Uncle Brian, mystery man, Uncle Brian, Brian's father, all that you are. I guess I just bring your joy here.
Let us affirm and honor and bless the words that have been spoken and the words that will continue to be spoken downstairs later. But let us also affirm and honor and bless those thoughts that we keep silent in our hearts and in our spirits. And you all actually started the ball on something that I was thinking about doing, so we're going to do this right now. This is for you, Brian. A reading by the poets Barry Fry and Wilbur Skeels, probably familiar to many of you. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glint on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you wake in the morning hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circling flight. I am the soft starlight at night. I am the song that never ends. I am the love of family and friend. I am the child who comes to rest in the arms of the Father who knows me best. When you see the sunset fair, I am the scented evening air. I am the joy of a task well done. I am the glow of the setting sun. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I would like to invite each of you now to join me in a litany of memory. And Austin, thank you for warming them up for that. For those of you who don't know what a litany is, this is where I'm going to say something, and you are going to make a response. And the response I'm going to ask you to make when I signal you are 3 simple words that are probably 3 of the most powerful words we can utter this afternoon together. We remember you. Let's try that.
We remember you.
In the rising of the sun and in its going down.
We remember you.
In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter.
We remember you.
In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring.
We remember you.
In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer.
We remember you.
In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn.
We remember you.
In the beginning of the year and when it ends.
We remember you.
When when we are weary and in need of strength,
We remember you.
when we are lost and sick at heart,
We remember you.
when we have joys we yearn to share.
We remember you.
Yes, Brian, we remember you. For as long as we live, you too shall live, for you are a part of all who have known you.
We remember you. We remember you. We remember you.
Let us unite our minds and hearts in a spirit of reflection and prayer. Between the morning and the night, between our ideals and our accomplishments, we would pause to reflect on the meaning of life, and especially on the meaning of our own lives. The giving we have invested in others, the love we have expressed in deeds, the work we did because we loved it, and the truth we spoke and followed. May we come to see the meaning of our days so that we might vow to live more fully and more deeply. Gracious God, your words say that when two or more are gathered in your name, you are in their midst, and we know and believe in our hearts and minds that you are with us here today. The book of Psalms says that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those who are crushed in spirit. Comfort, O God, those into whose circle death has come, those in whose eyes there are tears and on whose heart there is a wound. You know our sorrow, Lord. Your word also says, as a mother comforts her child, you comfort us. We turn our eyes to you as we seek to find the strength to trust in your faithfulness. I ask, Lord, that you be our comfort today. Help us to sense your presence and your peace. Out of the stillness of our hearts and the depth of our souls, may we always remember Brian, and may we humbly give thanks for his time here with us. Help us to reach out and comfort others as you, Lord, provide comfort to this gathering today. And may the love in our hearts join us together in ways even richer than before. With faith in one another, with gratitude for all blessings known and unknown, remembered and forgotten, may we always be ever mindful of the powerful possibilities of your love as we walk through all the seasons of our lives. May our hearts be always open to compassion, our minds open to wisdom, and our spirits always open to grace. In your name and in the name of all that is holy, may we all say Amen.
Amen.
Again.
Amen.
Once more.
Amen.
Spencer.
Evening.
Evening.
Wow, this really echoes up here. I got the pleasure of reading Psalm 23 today, and one of the reasons why I wanted to do this is this is really special to me, because as my dad was passing away, this is exactly what I read him. And what's so cool about this is no matter your beliefs in this room, I'd argue that there is a God, and he's here. And what's so cool is all throughout the Bible, there's depictions of shepherd and sheep. And it talks about how cool, it talks about that God is our shepherd and we have sheep, and we are the sheep. And we talk about how there's all this chaos in the world because, we're some sheep and we do some stupid stuff. I think what's awesome about that is the shepherd is always inviting us back in his pen. And what's amazing about Psalm 23 is this is read a lot at funerals and a lot in sad moments, but it's actually a psalm of joy. And it points towards the future, and it points towards just God being that welcoming and open Father that he is, and how gentle and lowly he is. So as I read this, I challenge you to think of God as someone who's just a father, as someone who's welcoming, and really meditate on that as I read this. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.
He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Yet though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Amen.
Let us unite our minds and hearts and voices together to recite the words that Jesus of Nazareth taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. From the writings of Colleen Cora Hitchcock, the poem Ascension. And if I go while you're still here, know that I live on vibrating to a different measure, behind a thin veil you cannot see through. You will not see me, so you must have faith. I wait for the time when we can soar together again, both aware of each other. But until then, live your life to its fullest, and when you need me, just whisper my name in your heart, and I will be there. Until then, live your life to the fullest, and when you need me, just whisper my name in your heart, and I will be there. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, memory to memory, story to story, blessing to blessing, strength to strength, gratitude to gratitude, spirit to spirit, love to love. Blessed be this moment of transition and letting go. Blessed be this sacred act. Blessed is the mystery of life and death. At this time, I'm going to ask the riders to come forward and join Rose and I up front. And if you'd all just come together along here. Eternal God, you know all things on earth and in heaven. So fill our hearts with trust in you, that by night and by day, in all times and in all seasons, we may without fear commit those who are dear to you into your never-failing love, for this life and in the life to come. God of life, God of love, protect these riders from all harm and mishap on the road. Enable them to reach their destination and return safely to us at the conclusion of this sacred and love-filled task. The wheel of life turns ever, and what comes out of the earth will return to it now in peace. The wheel of life turns, and yet whatsoever love and grace and gift we know from Ryan is at the center of that wheel. The the center which turns not, but remains as constant as the flow of time. Some words by Carl Sandburg. Gather the stars if you wish it so. Gather the songs and keep them. Gather the faces of women and men. Gather for the keeping, year upon year upon year. And then loosen your hand. Let go. And say goodbye. Let the stars and the songs go. Let the faces and the years go. Loosen your hands. And say goodbye. Goodbye, Brian. You are loved, and you will be missed. Blessed is the mystery of life and death. Blessed be love forever. Be Lunt, be strong. Amen. Let's all repeat that. Be Lunt, be strong. Be Lunt, be strong. Amen. We have gathered in the presence of a deep and abiding mystery. With humble hearts, we bow before the veil which has fallen between us and the one we love. Let us not fear, for greater than sorrow is love, which binds all hearts together in fellowship and courage. We are profoundly glad that Brian lived. We are glad that we saw his face and felt the glow of his friendship and love. We remain glad that Brian blessed our days and lives forevermore in our hearts. May the memories of our loved ones be cherished, and may their love live on in the lives of all who knew them. May we take up the journey of life and love with renewed courage and strength. May we cherish our memories and keep our hearts open to creating new ones. May we tell the stories and rededicate ourselves to living out their lessons in our lives. And may we bear witness to the miracle that each and every one of us represents, and not wait to tell those that we love just how much they mean to us each and every day. And day by day, year by year, generation to generation, may we continue to answer death's no with love's most powerful yes. May we continue to answer death's no with love's most powerful yes. Let's say that. Yes. 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 Amen. I ask that you now please, as you are comfortable, rise and join hands again as you're comfortable. If you're not crossing your hands, the lesson is fine. For the closing of our time together. May the peace which comes with acceptance and thanksgiving, the peace of the Spirit which rises above all the strains of the earth, be and abide with us all on this day and forevermore. Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord, and may perpetual light shine upon him. May his soul and the souls of all the faithful departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. May we all say amen. Amen. In the spirit of love we have gathered, and in the spirit of love we now depart. Our service is ended. Let us all go in peace. Again, may we all say amen. Amen. Before we go downstairs for a reception and a time for stories and fellowship and sharing, I'm going to ask Jamie Lozer to come forward. Jamie will be hosting our downstairs piece, but there is also one more video we need to share that he's going to introduce. I'm going to invite everyone to sit down for just another moment or two before we go downstairs.
Wow. We will remember you, Brian. And we'll live on with Brian's strength and love for all of us. Rick, thank you so much. And Austin, Barry, Spencer, Julie, Martha, for your words, your love for Brian. I've always loved Brian, I've always loved the Lunt family. I've always loved you girls. I love you also. And Nick. And so, it's been such a treasure in my life to be Brian's dear friend for over 40 years. And I'll share with you more stories later downstairs. I'll be short on words now, long on words now. Because there are a lot of stories. As Barry said, we need a century to tell all of those. But Reverend Lewis shared with us at the beginning that this is a tribute to Brian, because Brian meant so much to us. But I want to add to that, this is a tribute to us, because we meant so much to Brian. And that's how Brian affected people. You really felt, and you knew how much you meant to Brian. He loved you, loved all of us, and that's why we're here. We meant so much to Brian. And one person that really meant a lot to Brian was his daughter, Sophia. And let me tell you, they understood each other. As you will learn in the Brian breakdown.
Hello! We have returned. And this time, we're gonna hopefully get some really good laughs here. I present to you the Brian Breakdown. I made Brian this for his birthday one year, and it certainly garnered a few laughs, and I hope it does the same for you. Let's just get into this. Oh my gosh. This is great. Look at this. Oh. I'm doing so great. Right, let's welcome to the Brian Breakdown. This is a complete encyclopedia of the inner workings of Brian Lunt. Table of contents, we have names, Brian's dictionary, common phrases, what not to do with Brian, guiding principles, and knowledge. Next, the following are names that are used to describe Brian by his family and friends. Next, we have Be Late, Brian, Grumpy Lunt, Coach Lunt, Blunt Lunt, Logistics Lunt, Mr. Lunt, Brian, and thanks, Brian. Brian's dictionary. Hey, pronounced hey. This is an exclamation. One of Brian's most common exclamations, hey, serves a similar position as like in everyday speech. It could mean good or okay. The definition is not completely solidified on this word. Examples include, and it was like, hey. You can be like, hey. And we were all like, hey. You just have to be like, hey. Thing. Pronounced. Thing. It's an exclamation. Like, hey. Thing is another common explanation. Thing. Now, thing is a common pronoun for Brian, taking the place of whatever thing he is trying to think of. It's an all-encompassing term that can take the place of an event, object, or abstract idea. Examples include, it was a sort of meet and greet type of thing. You know, it was a thing. Pronounced. Compound phrase? Question mark? Used when dictating text messages to separate independent clauses. This is Brian's version of the period. I'm heading to the store. And I'm going past home around 5. Blah, blah, blah. Pronounced. Blah, blah, blah. This is a filler phrase. Synonymous with etc. Brian uses this to continue an idea without actually finishing it. Examples include, and you know, you just put the screw in type of thing and then stack the blah, blah, blah. Litly. Pronounced. Litly. This is an adverb, translated as literally. This is an adverb used to emphasize a certain situation or event that holds immense importance. Examples include, the snow was litly coming down so hard, and I was litly there for at least 2 hours. two words, saw and her. This is the past tense of to have seen a female. Examples include, I saw her yesterday. Gal, pronounced, gal. This is a noun, synonym for woman or girl. She's a really nice gal from work. Chief Big, Mr. Big. Pronounced Chief Big, Mr. Big. This is a noun. These two words are names that Brian has given to Milo, the black lab. Chief Big. What's up, Mr. Big? Mr. Big Paws. Pronounced Big Paws. This is a noun. Name Brian has given to Felix the cat. Most commonly used with the phrase, I'm right here. What? I'm right here. We've done this 52,000 times already, Mr. Big Paws. Cat. Darling. Pronounced darling. This is a noun, an endearing name Brian uses to refer to Rose. Big cakes. Pronounced big cakes. Now, another endearing name Brian uses to refer to Rose. Miss Thing. Pronounced Miss Thing. This is a noun. An endearing name Brian uses to refer to Sophia. Walsymart. Walsymart. Noun. Synonymous with the popular store. Walmart. Name Brian uses to refer to the store. Walmart. Heading off to Walsymart to buy some waters. Giant ripoff. Pronounced giant ripoff. Now, the bane of Brian's existence, these terms are used to refer to the popular supermarket here in McCandless, Giant Eagle. I went to Giant Ripoff and got half the groceries I could have bought at Aldi for a quarter price. False. A derogatory phrase used to refer to a horrible situation, a complete mess, a disaster, i.e. traffic jam. This is such a friggin' clusterfuck. Numbnut. Pronounced numbnut. Is a noun. Another derogatory phrase used to refer to someone who is acting clueless or idiotic, most often used in the driving setting. Examples include, come on, numbnut, let's move here. Storage. Storage. The 28,000 square, excuse me, that's incorrect. The 2,800 square foot warehouse facility located in Celia, PA, where Brian stores many of his possessions, including 4 vintage snowmobiles, 1 sailboat, 2 cars, and 4 dirt bikes, among others. An all-encompassing term that Brian uses to refer to places that he has found to house his items. Examples. I built some extra storage under the stairs. I have a meeting in an hour, so I'm going to head up to storage. I need to organize storage. Common phrases. The following are examples and explanations of some of Brian's common phrases. 1. It's the one on the right. Brian uses this phrase when he becomes frustrated at another driver who he believes is moving too slow or has not realized that the light has turned green. In this phrase, Brian is implying that the driver in front of him is pressing the wrong pedal and holding it still. Thus, he feels he needs to tell him or her that it is the one on the right. What a controversial favorite I had. Let's be real. Paradox is often present in this phrase, as Brian says he would like to eat and live a healthy lifestyle, yet purchases cheese curls, Trader Joe's coffee bean blast ice cream, and uses half a container of cheese and or sour cream on an otherwise all right there in length of time. This is a famous one right here. Brian likes to establish expectations of timing and plans so he can work around them. Often he becomes sidetracked in his daily planning and ends up running late. This phrase is used when Brian tries to solidify when he will arrive at a location. For accurate arrival time, use the following equation where A equals accurate time and B equals Brian time. Brian says, I will be there in 30 minutes. Replace the B with the 30 minutes, add 30 minutes to it, you get the actual time which will be It's evolving. This phrase refers to any situation that is not going as planned, and Brian, who often goes flow, we'll use this phrase to explain why the plan is not being followed. Be like a waterfall and go with the flow. I'm off like a herd of turtles in a sleet storm. Yeah. The following are a few of Brian's pet peeves. It is highly recommended that we abide by this list. Now, we all know Brian is an extraordinarily kind human being, unless you mess around with these things. What not to do with Brian? Drive slowly in the left-hand lane. Question Brian's driving abilities. Get your car without knocking the snow and or mud off your shoes. Turn up the volume on the TV with the wrong remote. Keep in mind, there are 4 remotes. Put the spoons in the wrong section of the silverware. And just when you thought this was it. No, there's more. Continue. Hide the pepper curry. Rearrange the piles of papers on his desk and or the trinkets on his shelves. Not clean off the bike. Not put the keys to the car back on the shelf in Rose's office. Drink his lemon water and eat his raspberries. Brian's guiding principles. The following are key principles Brian lives by in his day-to-day life. The solution to everything. Get in the hot tub. Brian insists that the hot tub is a miracle device that can solve any ailment, either physical, mental, emotional, social, or spiritual. Just get in the hot tub. Go with the flow. Brian does not like to be locked into a plan, as opportunities may present themselves along the way, and he does not want to pass them up. Thus, he gives a rough outline of what he would like to accomplish for the day, but that is indefinitely going to change and evolve. We will win and lose like gentlemen. One of Brian's guiding principles is being a good sport, on and off the field. Brian most often uses this phrase in a coaching setting, but it is applicable to all walks of life. This phrase translates as taking the high road and maintaining composure and humbleness, even in the face of loss or defeat. If it's meant to be, it will be. Brian believes that what occurs happens for a reason, so if one is waiting or on or expecting news or of an event, Brian will reply with this phrase. It means to have faith in the greater workings of the universe. And to finish off our presentation, grace. Probably Brian's most important guiding principle, grace is the idea of elegance in form and action. This means that despite what others may do around you, you take the higher road, another one of Brian's common phrases, and continue with grace and humbleness. And with that, I will leave you, hopefully, that you will all leave with some laughs, some joy, and grace. And remember that we must live our lives with these principles and the joy and laughter that Brian brought to our lives, and win and lose like gentlemen. I love you all. I wish I could be there with you. And I really hope that this brought some light and happiness in a day that should be a celebration of a wonderful, wonderful man. I love you all.
Thank you all. I welcome you to please head downstairs for refreshments. Thank you.